Religion, the shackles of religion. At face value, I know this seems like a blasphemous statement, but the reality is that many of our people in our circles have become self-righteous by a standard of religious beliefs that God has not placed on his people. Unknowingly, these set of beliefs come into form by many different names. Some may call it tradition, some may call it denominational teachings, and some may just have simple misinterpretation of Scripture. Today, with Inspiration Daily, we're going to be talking about some of the different shackles and pitfalls of religion. These thoughts and practices are often birthed through common phrase, or maybe a few common phrases, which may include, well, this is what I was always taught. You hear that a lot. They have always said that, and I always ask myself, or ask that person, who is they that taught you that? Who is they that says that? The sad part is that when you begin to ask people why they believe certain things, they can't often give you a real answer, and it becomes sometimes difficult for them to grasp. But the reality of it, this challenges them, and it gives them something to really consider why they believe and why sometimes they practice the things that they do practice that are not scriptural based. But as believers, I would urge you that we begin to challenge the teachings that anyone poses to you. Not by simple rebuttal or just saying no to something, but researching the subject for yourself. You owe it to yourself to know the truth and to know what Scripture really says. Now, but most people won't, and they'll just take their pastor or leader's word for it. I guess the message today is that the problem with these types of practices is that they require even more out of us as believers than God actually places on us, and the Scripture has no bounds for us. But following all the traditions in the world will not get you that close relationship with God that you're looking for. And the reason that is because God judges the heart of man. And as imperfect beings, we can never actually be perfect and be sinless. And so living a sinless life is impossible. And it's only by our hearts and our reconciliation through Jesus that we can actually be deemed righteous by God. Now, what forms do these shackles of religion occur in? It could be a required dress for church. It could be the prohibiting of indulgences of any music outside of religious music. Sometimes limiting of certain sinless recreational activities. For example, there are people in this world that believe that playing video games is a sin. Drinking an alcohol beverage is a sin. Listening to R&B music is a sin. Wearing makeup is a sin. And the list goes on. But it's important as believers that we challenge these false teachings because they stagnate so many people into a life of many limitations to the point where we focus so much on following all these rules that we are bound to, in our practices, to a level of living a life of nothing. Galatians 5:1 tells us that for freedom, Christ has set us free. Stand firm, therefore, and do not submit again to a yoke of slavery. There are Christians all around us who have established these beliefs and believe that we must conform to a level of holiness to where we can only talk a certain way. We have to carry our Bibles everywhere we go, and we must appear holy at all times. Wanting to condemn others based on these principles who don't operate in this same manner or these same constructs. This becomes counterproductive and not in alignment with the teachings of Jesus, which he tells us in the book of Jeremiah 31, telling us that with loving kindness I have drawn thee. What non-believer, ask yourself this question, what non-believer is lining up to accept a book of unwritten rules that man have written and to listen to a group of condemning, hypocritical believers? No one is signing up for that. And you may have fallen victim, but free yourself at this time. We as believers in the Christian faith cannot condemn simply because as we accept Christ and as we lead others to Christ, there is no condemnation through our accepting of Christ. And that's covered in Romans chapter 8. Now, the change is now. We must not fall victim to the trap of being so consumed with looking righteous that we don't focus on what actually makes us righteous based on the Scripture, and that's our heart. And let's consider the effect this actually has on a non-believer. What effect does this principle of non-scriptural standards have on a non-believer? By teaching these principles and deeming righteousness through non-scriptural teachings, We become unapproachable and out of tune with those who are in need of spiritual guidance. And so we know that in order to reach these individuals, we've got to be kin to them. We've got to be approachable. We've got to be able to talk to them and understand them on their level. So in other words, stop acting brand new. It's that simple. Many people would rather look religious and righteous than to actually be righteous. And this turns people away because they've made up in their minds that I can never live this standard. I'm not even gonna waste my time trying to live up to this Christian standard. But what I want to point out today is this: many of us have backed ourselves into a corner of to the point that we're so concerned with the worldly Christian standards that we are in more abundance than we were before we accepted Christ. Believers, the Lord has called us into a renewing of our minds to live life more abundantly and to be free. Jesus never dealt with religion through his teachings during his time on earth. He actually dismantled a lot of the rhetoric of the religious rhetoric and practice because they, just as today, were often corrupt and self-serving. Now, God deals with us on a spiritual level. So if you're looking for a closer walk with Jesus, a closer walk with God, there is no particular denomination, there's no particular church etiquette or tradition that will get you there. But it is only through the seeking of God in the spiritual level that we can achieve that relationship with God. So free yourself now. And I want to leave you with this one question. As you begin to think about the different traditions that you may have and that you practice, ask yourself these questions. If I follow this rule, what effect will it have on my spiritual being? Does it strengthen my spirit? Does it bring me closer to Christ? And what benefit does it have? If all you can say after asking yourself these questions is, it's just something that I was taught, let it go. Be blessed.